The very micro time frames are showing that the probabilities have flipped to the downside for a pullback only. And this EMA channel that I showed you on Friday how to use and set up, you can click that link there if you want to learn how to set it up, or wait till the end. I'll also link it to you at the end with the videos that'll pop up. It's saying that it's probable that a small pullback, or that could turn into a large pullback, is about ready to happen. It's probable. It's not guaranteed, but it's probable. However, the slightly larger time frames, which let's call mid and maybe even larger time frames, are given some indication that after this pullback, price really next week could be a really big green candle, but it could go either way. I don't think there's a great edge either way right here. So in this video, I'm going to show you specifically what to look out for so you can determine when does the edge to the downside or the upside get more obvious throughout this next week, as the weekly candle is probably going to open, I would say 30 minutes after I release this video. So let's go get this Bitcoin chart. I have two orange arrows marking the last time Bitcoin made a very similar signature on this 15-minute chart. And again, in my last video, I showed you a way to figure out what the probabilities of further upside or further downside on this very small term time frame chart. And the arrows right here are pointing to the idea that this is what Bitcoin is doing on this chart, and it's probable that some form of downside is about ready to happen, but larger time frames are saying it might not go very low and that next week could be green. Let me show you a couple of areas. Let me show you a couple of pieces of evidence showing downside, and then I'll do pieces of evidence to the upside so you can see at least what could take Bitcoin either way depending on which overpowers the other. And then I'm going to give you, I'll follow up the video with showing you the most important thing, and I'll end the video with this, is specific levels of what to look for as your edge becomes clearer throughout this week. All right, now, I'm going to zoom way into here so we can identify the very, very short-term time frames, why they're saying it's probable that this will pull back. Most likely, I mean, I would say it'll go down to 20,500 or so, which really isn't that much of a pullback. It could really bounce very strongly off of there. But in the very short-term time frame, the EMA fill is being used as resistance for 1 and 2 oscillations of the 15-minute chart. It looks like it needs to come touch 20,530, 20,550 area before it could, have another swipe up or a full-on, making higher local highs above here after it gets a little reset on the 4-hour chart. So downside type of stuff, let's take a look at the 12-hour chart. And we do have a cross of the stochastics, which honestly, I mean, they've been getting things pretty right. So I will mark, well, I can't mark right on it, but I will mark on both sides of the cross. Pretty similar signature, right? Now let's go to the chart and see what price did. And actually, we'll go to the back to the 15-minute chart here so you can see. All right. In the first instance within this micro channel, price essentially just kind of floated down and then started accelerating down once things got to interact with the point of control, which is this middle orange and black section here. So this is when the moment that the same 12-hour stochastic signature happened. Over here, it did spike up one more time, and then, so you could consider this a fake out, or it's not really a fake out, it's just got continuation right as that was turning down, and then price ended up turning down after that. So you must have had 1 hour saying, hey, I'm going to give one more small term time frame push as the 12-hour was trying to cross down, and that's what you get there. And here we have the same thing going. It has already crossed down. You did get one more spike up. You made a higher local high right here as the 12-hour Stochs were turning down. And so this is a piece of evidence that, I mean, things could pull back. And the 12-hour Stochs going down, I mean, it takes like a week or so. I mean, this could have been the height of it, right? So these are the bearish cases. And again, it's about a 50-50. I don't know what next week. I don't know if next week's going to be red or green. It's really hard to tell right now. And therefore, and what that means, the implications of that is, don't take on huge positions right now that you're trying to swing trade, or I mean, hell, even short-term trades. It's not the safest thing to be doing right now. All right, so we have the 12-hour chart, seeing what happened there the last couple times. Now let's take a look at the 4-hour chart. And I'm going to throw on the same EMA fill that I showed everybody in the last video to use on the 15-minute chart, but I'm going to use it on the 4-hour chart because you get a really good visual of what could end up happening. So I'm going to flash off my micro channel, and I'm going to zoom into this area right here and this area here, and let's look at the similarities. All right, so I'm going to zoom into there. Watch. So this, again, this is the 69K top back here, right? Okay, back in November, about 9-ish months ago. Now, let's take a look. What looks similar? Let me do this. Watch. I want you to determine for yourself. Let's make the opacity a little lower. There we go. What happened last time? Worked its rejected, swooped in, hit the top, and then swooped in, hit the top again, and then fell. Work it, rejected, pullback, got in, nearly hit the top. I mean, it looks eerily similar to this. I'm not going to lie. And I've seen a couple of accounts, TA accounts on Twitter post not this exact visual, but take a snapshot of this and take a snapshot of this, indicating that it looks fairly similar. It really does. But one of the things I'm going to show you for the bullish case, it is a totally different context, which is evidence to the upside as well. So what happened back here, the larger time frames were in a different posturing than they are now. And now the larger time frames technically have a better chance of getting a bounce. But this one time frame, it does look, I mean, it's not identical because what happened back from here and here are not the same, but the idea that it worked its way in, rejection, hit the top, it looks eerily similar. And if we stay on the 4-hour chart and look at the stochastics are moping down pretty far. Usually when you break past this point, so that, like, imagine this as the neutral zone here, right? And not in reference to Star Trek with the Romulans and the Alpha and Gamma Quadrant or whatever with the Romulans, but this is the neutral zone. The 4-hour Stochs sometimes bounce off the neutral zone, go back bullish. Bounce off the neutral zone, go back to the bullish zone. It's deep in here. Typically, when you get into here, yeah, you can have one more swipe up, but you usually end up resetting the Stochs. Well, I mean, very, very, very usually. It's not common that you get this far in and then don't, at least the blue, the faster moving Stoch, I mean, it usually has to reset here, okay? And so it's pretty deep in here. It looks like the 4-hour needs to reset, but that doesn't mean price has to go that low. The 4-hour Stochs can come all the way down here without price going much below 20,200, 300, maybe even 400. But I could see one more swipe up and then the Stochs get reset all the way down here. So that's another case for a little bit more bearish because it's now in the neutral zone hanging low and it typically does not get a bounce there. All right. Now also looking at the daily chart, the Stochs are starting to cross and it's a lower high. I mean, a lot of times when you get a high, lower high, and then the cross, so let's zoom way in there. You're getting the cross down with a lower high. That often gets, I mean, look, lower high, cross. What happened here? Let's do the last couple times. Why can't I do Alt V? There it goes. Right there. So lower high and cross right there. Lower high and cross right there. Lower high and cross right there. Lower high and cross right here. Lower high and cross right here. Lower high cross. All right, so let's go take a look at what all this gave us. These multiple examples. I could take off the EMA fill, I guess, for this. All right. So, looking at this similar situation here, you had how much downside? 13% before it then blasted up, which is almost what I'm thinking here. It happened right here, and you had I don't know, it's not that big of a move down, but it still moved down. That's still 10%, extremely tradable, and then it blasted up. right? Which is essentially what I'm insinuating could easily happen on Bitcoin. You get a pullback, then it really charges up. And again, the next part of the video, I'm going to show you the bullish cases that are suggesting that could be what happens. Which on the weekly scale, it would be a backfill, then the candle turns green. Here, it essentially got the 69K top. The same exact signature, straight down from there. Here, straight down from there. There is a big move down, even though it ended up recovering from that just a little bit over the next month. But this was still a pretty big move down. I mean, shit, 22% move down. So, and look here. I mean, this is all the same daily lower high, situation here with the Stochs and crossing down. So now, have the Stochs locked in cross down? No. What could easily happen to undo this is, you see over here on the right, the daily has an hour and a half left, an hour and 20 minutes. You see that at the time of this recording? Which for me, this is New York time Sunday at about 6:40 p.m. So what could happen in the last hour of this day, you have a nice big fat green candle, and then, so this is the daily, but within this red candle, you have one green candle that makes it like a dragonfly doji candle, or even flips green, but you could have one spike up within this candle, and it pushes it up here, and that could uncross. So this signature could easily disappear within the next hour. So this is one thing to be watching out for. How does this daily closure, that's a weekly closure though, also, does this lock in crossed? If it does, I mean, the signature is pretty bad, but it is not locked in. So I want to be very, very, this is a contingent bearish type of deal, and you have an hour and 20 minutes left to figure that out. But as of now, it looks like it's going to stay crossed, but it's definitely not locked in. All right, so those are some bearish things. I guess there are some more, but the lower time frames, like I suggested. So the EMA fill that I showed you last time, I used the 67 and the 200 on the 15. I will put my, actually there is one more specific thing that is a little bit more bearish, that recommends a little bit more downside, not a reversal, but more immediate downside. And so we've already zoomed in, seeing it get rejected. But this point of control here, I'm going to go to the 4-hour chart. Take that off. Look, you didn't get any candle. So let's zoom into this. So you see over here, this point of control, okay? Usually you get a 4-hour candle closure, then it goes up. 4-hour candle, well, this one closed right at it, then it screamed up. Zoom in over here, you didn't get a single 4-hour candle closure above it. This looks like a pretty solid rejection, and that's something that did not happen the last two previous oscillations. So the 4-hour oscillations, right, which could last like a whole week. So oscillation, that signature did not happen. It happened here at the bottom, and yes, it pulled back, then blasted. So you see it didn't get a 4-hour closure above, didn't get a 4-hour closure above, and both times it pulled back, and then charged, which could easily happen here again. This same exact thing, it could easily be getting ready to happen, but this time it got rejected from the top of this, and now it's below it, and I mean, it's completely below the point of control, so it's actually slightly more bearish than that last time on this one time frame, right? So the whole point is the 4-hour closures here are more bearish than what happened during this oscillation up from here to here and from here to here. It's much different. The interaction with the closing candles is much more bearish on this time frame and on the 4-hour time frame. I mean, the 4-hour is kind of saying pullback. So, and remember, like I showed you also on the 4-hour time frame, that it's the same identical stuff happened. Hit the top, fell. Hit the top. It looks like it's falling, right? Okay, so the 4-hour time frame is not looking great. Plus the stochastics, just as a summary here, are hanging pretty low in the neutral zone. It looks like it needs to come down here to reset. All right, now here are some things that are given some evidence that let's say it's fairly safe to say that we're going to get some type of pullback, small term time frame pullback here, but there are some larger time frames suggesting that this could pull back and really blast off. So let's dive into this more bullish case. Discord links in the description section of all of my videos. Make sure to check it out. Also, Cosasverdes with the number 2 afterward. If you want to follow me on Twitter to see some bomb charts that I post for crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and traditional markets. And if online communities are not your thing and you want more of a layup on your time to look at price analysis, I provide video recordings of what we do on Discord for the Cryptillion tier, our video live chats, and I create JPEG analyses for Bitcoin and traditional markets 1 to 3 times a day, 7 days a week. All right, rock. Now, what is more bullish here? Let's go to the daily. The daily RSI is not looking that bad. You got higher highs and higher lows. This is suggesting you could easily have a pullback, maybe even a deep one, right? It could be a deep one. And this could last, I don't know how many days. I guess I could just do the ticks. 1, 2, yeah. So this could be Sunday's candle or Monday's candle to like a 2-day pullback, maybe even a 3-day pullback, 3 red days in a row, and then really blast off. Because a lot of times, as this daily RSI goes really deep into the, so see how this is the red zone, and this is the green zone, and this is the neutral zone over here? As it goes deep into the red zone, it starts bouncing on this, making higher highs and higher lows. Usually the reversal point doesn't happen until the green stuff, or the RSI itself, hits its head on the red or white or somewhere in between. Deep into the green zone, higher highs, higher lows. It bumped its head between the white line and that line and then went down. It hasn't done that. So it looks like, I mean, this is suggesting that, yes, you could easily have a 2 to 3 day pullback, but it looks like it could easily get some continuation. This is not the most bearish thing, but it does have baked in within this bullishness here on this daily aspect. It looks like it wants to reset something like the 4-hour indicator, the RSI and oscillations on the 4-hour. Looks like it wants to get that reset and then try up higher. Go to the 2-day chart. You also have higher lows and higher highs, and price. The RSI bounced almost perfectly on this EMA here, and then you got a higher high. I mean, that is not very bearish at all. And this is a bit, so 2-day. I want to be clear. 2-day, a bullish signal. You could have a 10% pullback on Bitcoin within a bullish move, right? So this doesn't mean 100x long because Cosasverdes they said no. You could have a pretty serious pullback within this 2-day chart. 2 days is a pretty damn big time frame. So I'm not saying it's straight up from here. But this looks like the move. I mean, it's suggesting it's going to get more continuation to the upside. Clearly, it's going to be totally dependent on the stock market because Bitcoin and SPX are trading nearly identically, especially when SPX is in trading session, not the futures, E-mini futures, but SPX itself, Monday through Friday, roughly 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It closes New York. But SPX could pull this straight down. But I mean, historically, this is not bad for Bitcoin. I take this very seriously, and this is also suggesting we can get a pullback and you can really blast off. I mean, there aren't even a whole lot of cases of this. I mean, look, so this was after coronavirus. It got a similar signature, got above its EMA. So this is white line is the EMA, the green is the RSI itself. Got above the EMA, RSI got above the EMA, bounced on it, got a higher high. I mean, you got a lot of continuation. That's the last. So that was the last time the signature happened. You haven't had the same signature since then. You just had this Wyckoff fake out stuff, right? Where it did a bear trap, which we covered on my channel. Even though I got most of this stuff wrong during Wyckoff, I really fumbled the ball during most of this, but this I got perfectly right. But I mean, this didn't even create that signature, right? And you haven't seen it since. I mean, this is some serious stuff. All right, now let's go to the weekly. I mean, the weekly Stochs have had multiple attempts, like to get above its. So like let's call this, the Stochs and this the EMA of Stochs. Okay, it's kind of like the green RSI is the blue now, and the white line for RSI is this. I mean, the blue got above red, back below, or no, blue got above red, back below, rejected by red, back below, got above, back below, and this one, I mean, you got a higher low on the blue line here, higher low on the blue line, really went up. I mean, this doesn't look. This looks like it wants to at least come up to here. And this would take multiple weeks of upside to happen, right? It looks like it's going to enter this area. And that'd be 2 to 3 weeks of green candles. And if that were accurate, if the 4-hour chart resets, let's say the 12-hour crosses a little bit more and swoops back up, all those things could easily happen. But it would just be next week is green, but you had your Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday has a pullback within the week, and then that candle flips green. And we're going to cover that on the candle basis right now. So even the stochastics on the weekly stochastics on Bitcoin are suggesting this really could start getting some work done, and it could last, I mean, it looks like 2 to 3 weeks at minimum, maybe even longer. And what could end up happening, which could even be longer, is if you form a trend line here, which trend lines sort of work on large stochastics. I mean, look, it's kind of working here, right? Just connect these tops, they all hit. How many weeks would that take to get up? I mean, so if it went at about this pace right here, let's see here, is that about the right pace? And maybe a little bit more aggressively, something like that. All right, so how many weeks? 1, 2, yeah, that'd be also about 3 weeks. But those would be massive green candles. They'd be big. I mean, look what the candles did here. Let's just go boom, and let's go boom. Look how, I mean, this would be a lot of upside. So you had, within that, you had 2 pretty large green candles, and back here you had like 4 or 5 in a row. Right? I don't expect something like this to happen, but I mean, even here you had 2 pretty big ones, and from the point I did that up to the top was 30% move. So these larger time frames are saying, like, yeah, it almost looks like they're going to let this very short-term time frames take over, and then they're going to let them reset the lower to like 15 minutes and 4-hour Stochs coming down, maybe even 12-hour, like tapping tapping down to the neutral zone, getting ready to bounce up. It's kind of suggesting that's about what's ready to happen. Now let's go look at the weekly candles to see what that would look like. All right, I'm going to take off my micro channel since it's useless on the chart anyway, and here we go. All right, check this out. Bitcoin is essentially in a horizontalist range. And during altcoin season, I saved a lot of people a lot of trouble and a decent amount of money showing them this exact thing. You have a horizontal range here, and Bitcoin looks like it's going to close this week under this. Right? It's not 100% safe, but it looks kind of probable right now. Bitcoin's going to close under that. So usually, in order to fly the next week, you need a closure above this area, which is about 21,000 on the darn nose. So in 1 hour, okay, from the time I'm recording, not from the time you watch this, but if you're watching this after weekly close, just look at the weekly close. Did it close below this line, under 21,000? If so, then it's very likely you're going to have some type of pullback next week, if next week's going to be green, or next week could be red. So this is actually slightly more bearish, but the other indicators are saying this wants to pull back and then really ram through. Instead of, if it were to close above, then you'd only have like a pullback on the week for 2 or 3 hours and then zoom up. So this is also suggesting that, yeah, it's going to try lower for the first couple days of the week and then zoom up, right? Actually, without the indicators, this is saying it actually could get rejected. It could be a red candle. But the indicators coinciding with the weekly and the 2-day chart are saying it has a chance to pull back, start the week off red, and then flip, right? But if in the last hour of this week, or when you're watching this, if you see the week on Bitcoin close above 21K, that makes it much more probable that things are getting ready to swing up really hard next week. And it's going to be interesting to watch this weekly closure. So let's go look at a couple of other instances of this. Something similar. Might have to go to an altcoin almost. Here you go. So you had a straight up line here, right there, and Bitcoin here could not close above. So it had to try down lower, nice buy back up, and then plowed through. Had this week closed above this line, this candle likely would have been green. It would have replaced this. But it's almost as if, and I would almost want to bet you that this, at the end of the week, this was up higher. And then near the very, very end of the week, like maybe in the last couple hours, the big boys drove it below there. So other algos would then assist with taking things down so they could take on longs. And was this corona? No, this wasn't coronavirus. Kind of looks like not coronavirus, but is it? No, it's December 2019. So this is a fairly similar setup. And I could see something like this happening, but this looks more like a bear trap. I'm not smelling a bear trap right now, but this is an interesting case where the idea that you get this horizontal on weekly candles here and you close below it and you need to pull back a little bit. This is a whole week fake out, But in our case now, I would suggest that a closure below this would initiate at least 2 to 3 days to the downside before it tries up. Am I making sense there? So this closure is going to be a big deal, and by the time you're watching this, it's going to be very useful for you to go back. Hey, where did the week close? Was it above or below 21K? If below 21K, then more likely we're going to get a 2 to 3 day pullback potentially, right? Or a very deep pullback in one day, which is possible as well. All right, now next week. So taking a look at this structure here, if next week were to flip green on the weekly scale, there's not a lot stopping Bitcoin. I mean, look left. There's not a lot here. You have this wick up at 25K, right? This wick down. But on the weekly scale, if next week gets green, it could potentially be a pretty freaking bullish week. There is no resistance there for this time frame. Yes, on the micro and 4-hour time frame, I can find all sorts of resistance levels. But on the weekly scale, I mean, 25,360 ish, 25, yeah, almost 25.5. 25.5 would be the next weekly pit stop. And then after that, you have all this area. I mean, that's closer to 30K. So if this week can flip green, it'll allow the weekly Stochs to lock in across up. I mean, at that point, even if it doesn't happen all in 1 week, if the week can flip green and Bitcoin is at only 23K or whatever, and you're halfway through the week, it becomes a lot more probable that the idea of 25K or 25.5, I mean, it becomes pretty likely. That's the first resistance. So how can we tell if Bitcoin is going to have a green week or start off red then turn green or whatever? Okay, so all I've done in this video is show you all the cases for small term time frame pullback, and then larger time frames, they agree with the pullback, but they still look bullish after the pullback. And the even larger time frames are saying this might want to swing north, and if it does, it's not going to stop for quite a while. But we don't know if that's going to happen, and neither do you. No one does, right? So what I'm going to show you, and I'm going to end the video with this, is show you in real time. If above this, then chances are good for an upside. If below this, then chances are likely for downside. So let's go establish those targets. And I'm going to have to use the smaller time frames to do that. All right, I'm going to put my micro channel back on. All right. And again, I'm going to play the 15-minute chart. And I'm going to put that EMA fill back on that I showed you last time. And again, I'll link it to you at the end of this video. But if Bitcoin can get back above the bottom line of its point of control here, which Tradingview, which currently is sitting around 21.2. So if Bitcoin gets above 21.2 and it gets above this EMA fill, so let's zoom in. That'll happen about the same time. So this is a key line. If Bitcoin gets back above about 21,200, it'll both get back into this point of control, which is not bearish, and it'll be back on top of this EMA fill, which is not bearish. And then you can say to yourself, the more immediate likelihood is to the upside, and you could, the probabilities of a pullback first are fairly unlikely, right? So you just got to take this on the small time frames, one step at a time, and identify when does an edge become more likely? And this, honestly, is the best line that I can find, is 21,200, because it interplays with so many things. Now, it does change day by day because this is an ascending line. So by tomorrow, that same line, well, it's about 21.2. So it'll stay 21.2 for a few days. 21.2. So you can use that as a horizontal if you don't have the channel set up like mine back here. Just 21.2. And draw that line or make a box at 21.2 or something to that effect so you can see it. And if price gets on top, then likelihood to the upside is greater. And if it stays below it, then likelihood to the downside is greater. So right now, it is greater chance that there is a pullback first. Now, how can we tell if price is going to start getting bullish after a pullback? Well, so I can take this off here. This EMA, right? Which one is it? This EMA right here is, I'm going to pull it up at an easier to see type of deal. I have a dog chewing on something over there. the 15-minute 200 EMA, which I think is almost identical to the 4-hour 10. Yes, it is. So here at any time, even if you get a pullback, let's say we get a pullback down to here, right? Let's say it's all the way down to 20,000. Okay, so it goes like this. But you're thinking, okay, how are we going to know if when it becomes probable that a big move after the pullback is going to happen, if price can get back above this EMA, essentially? So if you could see price pull back at any time, and then it comes back above the 4-hour 10 EMA, or using the 15-minute 200, if it can get above it and use it as support. So that's the key. Not just get above it. That doesn't count for much. Get above it and specifically use it as support. Then your odds for another oscillation up, maybe not going to 25K, but the immediate term, the likelihood to the upside is great. Does that automatically give you an edge to the upside for 25K? Absolutely not. The shelf life on the 15-minute chart, I mean, it's probably only half a day or something like that, right? It may be up to like 3 or 4 days, but this would be the line I'd use. So in this pullback, let's say it goes down to 20K or only 20,500. If it can get back above the 15-minute 200 EMA, then you're likely going to have another swipe up. And so you're going to see, does it make a higher local high over 21,700, or does it make a lower local high? And again, all you have to do is make a 45-degree projector tool. Okay, so let's say you see that start to happen, and price goes all the way down here to 20K, boom, boom, gets above, bam. If it starts getting rejected from here, that projector tool, and goes back down, well, then that's probably it, right? The bearish case will probably play out, and it's all about this 45. I'm telling you, crypto loves 45-degree angles. But in this case, though, and so what I'm showing you here is how do you get probabilities of, like, is next week flipping green and staying really green, and then the next week even after might go up to 25K. This is how you get those probabilities, and it's all about this 45-degree angle right here. It very likely will come into play. So you get a pullback, and then it gets back on top of this EMA, and it gets above that channel. I think at that time, I mean, the probabilities for at least, let's say, 24K Bitcoin, it starts, I would say if it gets above this, it's probably right at 50-50 chance that you're going to have a nice strong oscillation up at least to the top of this micro channel, or up to here, maybe 23,200. I think that's about your 50-50 point. If you can get back on top of the 15-minute 200 EMA, or which is the 4-hour 10, same thing. They're right in line with each other at all times, essentially. And you get back above a 45-degree angle or a trend line from here, right? The last two oscillations get back above that. So if you draw a trend line from top to here, it's essentially getting above that. There, go like this. See that? So that's oftentimes why 45-degree angles work, because it aligns with something like this. So if you can get back above that line, I think that it's a 50-50 that Bitcoin at least gets up to 23,000 something, and the week is going to flip green. So this video should have covered very small time frames, cases for bearish and bullish across time frames, and then how to understand when you have an edge both for small time frames and then leading into the weekly type of candle. Hopefully this was helpful. Click this video right here if you missed my last video in order to set up that EMA fill, and click this video right here if you want some futures trading tips. If you're new to futures and you won't hear these tips anywhere else, I made them just for you. You got Timified Worldwide. Stay safe.